Daniel almost didn't stop. Rain hammered the highway, everyone else speeding past the stranded patrol cruiser like it wasn't their problem. But he saw her standing there, hood up, hazards flashing, alone on the shoulder of I-71, and something in him wouldn't let his foot stay on the gas. He pulled over, stepped out into the cold, and when she turned toward him, wiping rain from her face, his whole world went silent. Her face. That face. He didn't know her name, didn't know why she was here, on this exact stretch of road 12 years later. But he knew those eyes, knew them in a way that made his chest tighten and his hands shake. His daughter called from the truck, "Dad, who is that?" And he had no answer. Because how do you explain recognizing someone who has no idea you exist? The rain was the kind that soaked through in seconds, cold and mean the way October rain got in Ohio. Daniel kept his hands in his jacket pockets as he walked toward the cruiser, boots splashing through puddles that caught the red and blue flash of her hazard lights. The woman, the officer, straightened when she saw him coming. Her hand went to her belt, not quite touching her weapon, but close enough that he knew she was trained to be careful. "You need help?" Daniel kept his voice steady, non-threatening, kept his distance. She looked him over, took in the faded Carhartt jacket, the worn work boots, the 20-year-old Ford with a kid's face pressed against the rear window. Her expression didn't change much, but something in her shoulders relaxed a fraction. "Distributor caps shot," she said. Her voice was flat, professional. "Tow truck's coming. You should get back on the road before someone rear-ends you." Daniel nodded. Should have walked away right then. Should have gotten back in his truck, driven Mia to his sister's place, kept his weekend visitation simple and uneventful the way the custody agreement required. But his feet wouldn't move, because up close, even in the dark and the rain, he could see the small scar on her left temple, the one shaped like a crescent moon, the one he'd watched the ER doctor stitch while he gave his statement to the highway patrol, still smelling like smoke and gasoline. "I know a guy," Daniel heard himself say. "Runs a shop in Palmer. Could get you a cap at cost if you need it." She studied him. Not suspicious exactly, but not trusting either. "Why?" It was a fair question. Daniel didn't have a good answer, or rather, he had an answer he couldn't give. So he shrugged. "Seems like you could use a break." Behind them, a semi roared past, close enough that the wind buffeted them both. The officer glanced at the traffic, then back at Daniel. Something flickered in her eyes. Calculation, maybe, or simple exhaustion. "I appreciate it," she said, not quite accepting, not quite refusing. Daniel pulled a receipt from his pocket, borrowed her pen to scratch his name and number on the back. His handwriting was terrible, always had been, but she took the paper without comment. Folded it once and slipped it into her jacket. "Daniel Hayes." She read from the receipt before she put it away. Her eyes came back up to his. "I'm Officer Morgan." Not Rachel. Not yet. Just a title and a last name. Daniel wondered if she'd always been this guarded, or if the job had made her that way. Wondered if she ever thought about the night her parents died, if she remembered the voice telling her to stay awake, to keep breathing, that help was coming. "Get somewhere dry," she said, dismissing him. Daniel walked back to his truck. His hands were shaking again, same way they'd shaken 12 years ago, when he'd finally gotten clear of the wreck and realized the girl was breathing, was going to make it, was going to live, even though her parents wouldn't. Mia watched him climb in, her 7-year-old face serious in the way kids got when they knew something was wrong, but didn't have words for it yet. "Is she okay?" Mia asked. "Yeah." Daniel started the engine. It coughed, protested, caught. "She's okay." "Then why do you look sad?" The call came 3 days later while Daniel was on a job site, replacing rotted floor joists in a house that should have been condemned 10 years ago. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "This is Hayes. Mr. Hayes, this is Officer Rachel Morgan. You left your number about a distributor cap?" Daniel straightened, nearly hitting his head on the floor above him. "Right, yeah. You need it?" "If the offer still stands." A pause. "I'm not asking for charity." "Didn't think you were." They arranged to meet at the auto shop where Daniel worked weekends, the place his buddy Mike ran out of a garage that had been there since the 70s. Rachel showed up exactly on time, driving a civilian car this time, a Honda Accord that had seen better days. She was in plain clothes, jeans, a grey sweater, her hair pulled back. Without the uniform, she looked younger, tired. Daniel had the part waiting, told her what Mike charged him. $30, half what the dealership would have asked. Rachel counted out exact bills, no argument. "You do this for everyone who breaks down?" she asked while Daniel installed the cap, his hands moving through the familiar motions without thought. "When I can." "That's either really kind or really naive." Daniel glanced up. She was watching him work, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "My daughter says both," he said. That got something. Not quite a smile, but close. "How old?" 7. "She with you full time?" The question landed harder than she probably meant it to. Daniel tightened the last bolt, wiped his hands on his jeans. "Working on it." Rachel didn't push, just nodded, like she understood that some things you didn't talk about with strangers. She thanked him, paid for the part, and drove away. Daniel watched her go and told himself that was the end of it. That he'd done what he could. That seeing her alive and functioning was enough. He was wrong. The subpoena came 2 weeks later, delivered to the job site by a county deputy who looked apologetic about the whole thing. Daniel signed for it, read it twice, didn't understand half the legal language. What he did understand, he was being called to testify in an internal affairs investigation. A traffic stop he'd witnessed 6 months ago. A DUI arrest that had disappeared from the system. He remembered the stop. Remembered because it had been strange. The way the officer had made the driver get out, run through the sobriety tests, then suddenly let him go after a phone call. Remembered because Daniel had been parked at a gas station, watching while Mia used the bathroom. And something about the whole thing had felt wrong. Now, apparently, someone else thought so too. Daniel called the number on the subpoena, got transferred 3 times before a woman's voice came on the line, crisp and familiar. "This is Officer Morgan." Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. "It's Daniel Hayes. I got a subpoena." Silence. Then, "Can you come to the station? We should talk." The police station smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner, the kind of smell that got into your clothes and stayed there. Rachel met him in a conference room with windows that looked out onto the parking lot. She was in uniform again, her posture military straight, but there were shadows under her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I need to know what you saw," she said after they sat down. No preamble. "That night at the gas station, the traffic stop," Daniel told her. Kept it factual, didn't embellish. The officer pulling over a Mercedes, the sobriety tests, the phone call, the driver getting back in his car and leaving. Rachel took notes in handwriting that was neat and precise, nothing like Daniel's scrawl. "Did you see the officer's badge number?" "No, but I saw his face." "Would you recognize him?" "Yeah." Rachel set down her pen, looked at him straight on, and Daniel saw something in her eyes that he recognized, the look of someone who'd decided to do the right thing, even though it was going to cost them. "This investigation is going to make people angry," she said. "The officer you saw is connected. High up. If you testify, they'll come after your credibility. Dig into your life. Use whatever they find." Daniel felt his stomach drop. What would they find? I don't know, but I had to tell you. Rachel's voice was steady, but her hands weren't. She caught herself, flattened her palms on the table. You have every right to refuse. The subpoena can be challenged. You could say, you don't remember clearly. You could... What happens if I don't testify? Rachel's jaw tightened. The case gets weaker, maybe falls apart. These officers keep doing what they're doing. And if I do, they'll try to destroy you. The words hung between them. Daniel thought about his custody hearing, just weeks away. Thought about his ex-wife's lawyer, already building a case that Daniel was barely holding it together. Thought about what would happen if the police department started making calls, planting doubt, creating problems where none existed. I need to think about it, he said. Rachel nodded, didn't look surprised. Take your time, but I need to know by Monday. Daniel didn't sleep that night, just lay on his mattress, no frame, couldn't afford one, and stared at the water stain on the ceiling that kept growing no matter how many times the landlord promised to fix the roof. His mind kept circling the same questions over and over until they blurred together into white noise. If he testified, they'd dig. They'd find the apartment with mold in the bathroom corners, find out he'd been laid off from better jobs twice in 3 years, not because he was bad at the work, but because construction dried up when it dried up, and last hired meant first fired. They'd find out he sometimes ate ramen 3 nights a week so Mia could have real meals. They'd make all of it sound like failure instead of what it was, a man doing everything he knew how to keep his daughter safe, and the custody hearing would be over before it started. But if he didn't testify, some drunk driver would get away with it. Maybe kill someone next time, maybe kill a family like Rachel's family, leave another 17-year-old girl screaming in a burning car while her parents bled out in the front seat. Daniel got up around 3 in the morning, made coffee he didn't want, sat at his kitchen table with papers spread out, bills, custody documents, the subpoena. The math didn't work any way he tried it. Testifying meant risking Mia. Not testifying meant being the kind of man who looked away when it mattered. He thought about calling his sister, but she'd tell him to refuse, tell him Mia came first, always, and she'd be right. Any decent parent put their kid first. Except Daniel kept thinking about Rachel at 17. Kept thinking about the choice someone had made that night. Some off-duty firefighter who could have driven past, could have said it wasn't his problem, could have stayed safe. And that choice had given Rachel a life. Had given her the chance to become someone who stood up to corruption even when it cost her. What kind of life was Daniel giving Mia if he taught her that doing right only mattered when it was convenient? His phone buzzed. Text from his sister. Mia's asking about you. Says she had a bad dream. Daniel called. His sister put Mia on, and his daughter's voice came through small and scared. Dad? Hey, baby. I'm here. I dreamed you went away and didn't come back. Daniel's throat closed. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? He wanted to promise. Wanted it so badly his chest ached. But he'd learned not to make promises he couldn't guarantee, and right now, with the custody hearing looming and the subpoena sitting on his table, he couldn't guarantee anything. I'm going to try really hard to always be here, he said instead. Okay? Mia was quiet. Then, Dad, you know that police lady you helped? Yeah? Did you have to help her? Like, was it your job? No, baby. I just wanted to. Even though we were late? Even though. Another pause. I think that was good. That you helped her, even if it made things harder. Daniel closed his eyes. 7 years old, and somehow Mia saw things clearer than he did. Saw that some choices were worth making, even when they cost you something. Yeah, he said softly. Me too. After he hung up, Daniel sat with the phone in his hand for a long time. Thought about what he wanted Mia to learn from watching him live his life. Thought about the man he wanted to be versus the man fear was trying to make him. The sky was starting to lighten when he finally picked up his phone and texted Rachel. "I'll testify." Her response came fast, like maybe she hadn't been sleeping either. "Are you sure?" Daniel typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on the truth. "No, but I'll do it anyway." The custody hearing was worse than he'd expected. His ex-wife's lawyer was good, the kind of good that cost money Daniel didn't have. They painted a picture of a man who'd walked away from a stable career, who jumped from job to job, who lived paycheck to paycheck in a 1-bedroom apartment with mold in the bathroom and a landlord who didn't fix things. They weren't wrong about the facts, just about what they meant. Daniel's public defender talked about Daniel's work ethic, his perfect visitation record, the way Mia's teachers raved about her despite the chaos of the divorce. But it wasn't enough. The judge ruled primary custody to his ex-wife. Daniel got supervised visitation every other weekend until he could demonstrate improved living conditions. In the hallway after, Mia clung to his neck and cried, and Daniel held her and lied through his teeth that it was going to be okay. Rachel found him there, 30 minutes later. He didn't ask what she was doing at the courthouse. She was probably working. But when she saw his face, saw Mia's red eyes, she stopped. "That bad?" Daniel couldn't speak, just nodded. Rachel crouched down to Mia's level. "Hey, you okay?" Mia wiped her nose on her sleeve. "I have to live with Mom." "You don't like living with Mom?" "She's never there, and her boyfriend's mean." Rachel's eyes flicked to Daniel. He could see her putting it together. The custody fight, the supervised visits, the desperation underneath. She stood up slowly. "Can we talk?" she asked Daniel. They found a bench outside. Mia sat between them, exhausted and quiet. Rachel didn't waste time. "I can help," she said. "If you testify in my case, I can get you a letter of commendation, civic cooperation, assisting law enforcement. It's not much, but it's documentation of character. Might help in an appeal." Daniel stared at her. "I already said I'd testify." "I know. But you didn't know it could help you too." "Why would you do this?" Rachel looked away, out at the parking lot. "I told you. Someone helped me once. I'm paying it forward." Something in her voice made Daniel study her profile. The scar on her temple, the careful way she held herself, like someone who'd learned not to trust easy comfort. And suddenly he wondered if she knew more than she was letting on, if she'd looked him up the way he'd never looked her up, afraid of what he'd find. "Rachel," he said carefully, "do you remember the accident? The one that killed your parents?" She went very still. "Why would you ask me that?" "Just wondering." "I don't remember much. I was 17. It was winter. Black ice on I-71. Her voice was flat, reciting facts. "My parents died on impact. Someone pulled me out before the car caught fire. I don't know who." Daniel's throat closed. She didn't know. After all this time, she genuinely didn't know. "Do you want to?" he asked quietly. Rachel turned to look at him. Really look at him, for the first time. Her eyes went wide, then wider, and he watched her put it together. The scars on his forearms. The way he'd known exactly where to find her that night on the highway. The coincidence that wasn't coincidence at all. "It was you," she whispered. Daniel nodded. Mia looked up at both of them, confused. "What was Dad?" Neither adult answered. Rachel stood up fast, like she needed distance. Her hands were shaking, same way Daniel's had shaken that night, same way they still shook sometimes when he smelled smoke. "I need to go," she said. "Rachel, thank you for agreeing to testify." She was already walking away, moving fast, almost running. Daniel watched her go and didn't follow, just held Mia and wondered if doing the right thing was supposed to hurt this much. The testimony happened 3 weeks later, in a room that felt too small, too cold, too much like every other government building Daniel had ever been inside. He described what he'd seen, answered questions from Rachel and the investigator, kept his voice steady even when the department's lawyer tried to rattle him. "Mr. Hayes, isn't it true you were recently deemed an unfit parent by family court?" "No." "But you lost custody of your daughter." "I lost primary custody." "That's different." "Is it? Because the court record shows..." "The court record shows I work 2 jobs to afford a place in a good school district. Shows I've never missed a visitation. Shows my daughter's teacher says she's thriving." Daniel's voice didn't rise, didn't waver. "What it doesn't show is whether that makes me fit or unfit. The judge had to decide that on income, not character." The room went quiet. The lawyer looked like he wanted to push harder, but Rachel's boss, the internal affairs captain, cut him off. "We have what we need. Thank you, Mr. Hayes." Daniel left. Thought that was the end of it. He was wrong again. The retaliation came fast. His foreman at the construction company pulled him aside Friday afternoon, looking uncomfortable. "Hayes, I got to let you go." Daniel felt the floor drop out. "What?" "Downsizing. Orders from up top. We just landed 3 new contracts." The foreman wouldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry, man. I really am." Daniel cleaned out his locker, drove home, and stared at his kitchen table trying to do math that didn't work. Without the construction job, he had the auto shop on weekends. Maybe 30 hours a month. Not enough for rent, not enough for groceries, definitely not enough to convince a judge he could provide for Mia. He didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the couch and watched headlights move across the ceiling, thinking about all the ways he'd failed the people who needed him most. Rachel showed up at his apartment Sunday morning. Daniel almost didn't answer the door, didn't want her to see how bad it was, the peeling linoleum and the water stain on the ceiling that kept growing. But she knocked again, and something in the rhythm told him she wasn't leaving. "What happened?" she asked when he opened the door. "Lost my job." Rachel's expression went hard. "When?" "Friday. 2 days after you testified." It wasn't a question. She was already pulling out her phone, making calls, pacing his tiny living room. Daniel caught fragments of conversation: corruption, retaliation, witness intimidation. When she hung up, her face was set in lines that could have been carved from stone. "I'm going to fix this," she said. "Rachel, you can't. Watch me." She left. Daniel stood in his doorway and wondered what he'd set in motion. The story broke on Tuesday. Not from the department, not from the investigation, from Rachel. She'd gone to the local news with everything: the evidence, the pattern of arrests that disappeared, the names of officers involved, the retaliation against witnesses. She'd burned her career down to get the truth out. Daniel read the article 3 times, saw Rachel's name, her photograph, her rank, saw the word "suspended pending investigation," and knew what it cost her. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. "You should turn on the news," Rachel said. Daniel found a TV, watched the press conference, watched 3 officers get led out in handcuffs, including the captain Rachel had worked under, watched the police chief promise reform, accountability, transparency, watched Rachel stand at the back of the room, in civilian clothes now, her badge surrendered. The phone was still at his ear. "Rachel, I need you to know something," she said, cutting him off. "This wasn't about you. I mean, it was, but not just you. I've been working this case for months. You testifying gave me the last piece I needed, but I was going to finish it either way. Even if it cost you everything, especially then." She paused. 12 years ago, you didn't have to stop. Could have kept driving, but you didn't. And I got to live. Got to grow up, finish school, become a cop. Got to make something of the life you saved. Her voice cracked, just barely. So yeah, even if it cost everything. Daniel closed his eyes. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Figure it out, I guess. A beat of silence. What about you? Same. Rachel laughed just a little. It was the first time Daniel had heard her laugh, and it sounded rusty, unpracticed. We're a pair, aren't we? Yeah, Daniel said. We are. They hung up. Daniel sat with his phone in his hand, staring at nothing, until Mia came out of her room. This was his weekend, supervised visit at his apartment, and climbed into his lap. Was that the police lady? She asked. Yeah. Is she okay? Daniel thought about that. About what okay meant. About the distance between survival and thriving. About the long, slow work of healing from things that never fully go away. She will be, he said. 3 months later, Daniel got a call from a lawyer he'd never met. The department had settled. Wrongful termination, witness retaliation. Enough money to cover 6 months of living expenses and legal fees for a custody appeal. Not a fortune. Just a chance. The call from his ex-wife came a week after that. She'd seen the news coverage, realized that fighting him meant subjecting Mia to media attention, questions from strangers, the weight of public scrutiny. She didn't want that. Neither did her boyfriend. I think we should try joint custody, she said. Really joint. 50-50. Daniel didn't trust it. But he took it anyway, because he didn't have room to be proud anymore, just grateful. The first thing Daniel did with the settlement money, after paying rent and buying groceries that would last more than 3 days, was sign up to volunteer at the community center on Lorraine Avenue. They ran a job training program for guys coming out of prison, teaching basic construction and repair work. Skills that could turn into real jobs if someone gave them a chance. Daniel knew about second chances, knew how hard it was to rebuild when everyone assumed you were already broken. He started small, showed up Tuesday and Thursday evenings, the nights Mia was with her mom, taught guys half his age and guys twice his age how to frame a wall, how to read a level, how to patch drywall so the seam didn't show. Some of them had hands that shook from withdrawal. Some of them had records that meant most contractors wouldn't look twice. All of them needed someone to believe they could be more than their worst mistake. Why are you doing this? One kid asked him after class one night. Couldn't have been more than 22. Tattoos up both arms, eyes that had seen too much too young. Daniel thought about it. Because someone gave me a shot when I needed it. Figured I should do the same. The kid nodded like that made sense. Like maybe he'd been waiting for someone to say exactly that. Word got around. By month 2, Daniel's classes were full. By month 3, the community center asked if he'd run a weekend workshop. By month 4, 2 of his students had landed real jobs with contractors Daniel knew, guys who were willing to take a risk on someone with potential. Rachel found out because one of her clients at the nonprofit, a single mom fighting for custody of her kids, mentioned that her brother had learned drywall from some guy named Hayes who volunteered at Lorraine. Rachel showed up to Daniel's next class unannounced, stood in the back and watched him walk a nervous 19-year-old through cutting a straight line with a circular saw. When class ended, she waited while Daniel cleaned up, said goodbye to his students, turned off the lights. You're good at this, she said. Daniel shrugged. It's just basic stuff. That's not what I meant. Rachel leaned against the doorframe. She looked different than she had 3 months ago. Less hollowed out, more settled. You're good at seeing people. Really seeing them. Learned it from you. Rachel's expression shifted, something soft and complicated. I think you had it first. You just forgot for a while. They walked out together. The parking lot was mostly empty, streetlights buzzing overhead. Rachel's car was parked next to his truck, the same beat-up Ford, but Daniel had fixed the exhaust leak and replaced the spark plugs. Small improvements, but they added up. The non-profit's expanding, Rachel said. We're adding a program to help families navigate housing court. And we need someone who understands construction, can spot slumlords trying to dodge code violations. Daniel looked at her. You offering me a job? Offering you a chance to do more of what you're already doing, except with insurance and a paycheck. She paused. It's not much, but it's steady. I'll think about it, Daniel said. But they both knew he'd say yes. 6 months after that, Daniel had a routine. Mornings at the non-profit, helping families document housing violations and file complaints. Afternoons teaching at the community center when he wasn't picking up Mia from school. Weekends split between Mia and the auto shop because Mike still needed help and Daniel liked keeping his hands busy. The work didn't pay great, but it paid enough. And for the first time since the divorce, Daniel felt like he was building something instead of just holding on. Mia noticed, commented on it one Saturday while they made pancakes together. Her job to pour the batter, his job to flip. You seem happier, Dad. Yeah? Yeah. She watched him flip a pancake, caught it perfectly. You smile more now. You didn't used to smile much. Daniel hadn't realized, but she was right. Somewhere between losing everything and finding a different version of everything, something had shifted. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. You know what I learned? He said, sliding her pancake onto a plate. What? That sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is also the thing that teaches you what matters. Mia considered this while she drowned her pancakes in syrup. Is that why you help people now? Because bad stuff happened to you? Maybe. Or maybe bad stuff happened so I'd know how to help people going through their own bad stuff. That's kind of nice, Mia said. Like bad things can turn into good things if you let them. Daniel smiled. 7 years old, and already wiser than most adults he knew. Yeah, baby. Exactly like that. The day the custody agreement was finalized, real joint custody, 50-50, no more supervised visits. Daniel took Mia to the same coffee shop where he'd agreed to meet Rachel one more time. Rachel had brought files, photos of families she'd helped that month, stories she thought he'd want to hear. Mia ran ahead when she saw Rachel, talking a mile a minute about her new school schedule, her teacher, the science project she was planning. Rachel listened with the kind of attention people rarely gave kids, asking real questions, treating Mia's answers like they mattered. When Mia wandered off to look at the pastry case, Rachel and Daniel sat across from each other. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, just full. I've been thinking about what you said, Rachel said eventually. About not owing each other. Yeah? I don't think that's true. I think we're all carrying debts we didn't ask for. The people who saved us, the people we couldn't save, the people we failed. She met his eyes. Maybe the point isn't to pay them back. Maybe it's to pass them forward. Daniel thought about the night on the highway. The decision to stop when everyone else kept driving. The way one choice could ripple out in ways you never predicted, never controlled, never fully understood. Thought about the guys at the community center, the families at the non-profit, the slow accumulation of moments where someone chose to help instead of walk away. So what does that look like? He asked. I don't know yet. Rachel's smile was small, tentative, but real. But I'd like to figure it out. They sat there while Mia debated between a chocolate muffin and a blueberry one, while the coffee shop filled and emptied around them, while the afternoon light changed and the world kept turning. Daniel thought about all the things they'd lost, Rachel's parents, his marriage, her career, his certainty. Thought about what they'd found instead. Not romance, Not rescue, just the slow, steady work of two people who'd saved each other in the ways that mattered, learning how to live with what came next. Yeah, Daniel said quietly. Me too. Mia came back with a chocolate muffin and sticky fingers, talking about guardian angels and how her teacher said everyone had one, whether they knew it or not. Rachel and Daniel exchanged a look over her head. Something knowing, something gentle, something that didn't need words. Outside, the light was fading. Inside, something else was beginning. Not a debt repaid, just a choice made again and again, to stop when everyone else kept driving, to pull someone from the wreckage, to believe that one person's decision could matter, could ripple, could change the shape of a stranger's entire life. And in the end, maybe that was enough. More than enough, it was everything.